They told the manager not to hire me because I was too soft, but they didn't know I owned the company. Now, when I walked into the interview room, my own parents were already sitting across the table, smirking. My dad leaned back and whispered to the HR guy, "We're just here to make sure she doesn't embarrass herself." My mom didn't even look at me, she just kept fixing her lipstick in her compact mirror like I didn't exist. Before we go on, if you've ever been underestimated by the people who should have believed in you the most, like, share and hit that subscribe button. You're not alone, and this story is for you. I tried to keep my hands from shaking. It wasn't just an interview for a job, it was a chance to finally get out of the shadow they'd shoved me into for years. Ever since I dropped out of college to build my startup, they called me a disappointment. "Nova can't finish anything," my dad would joke at family dinners. "She's good at wasting time, though." My mom once told me she was ashamed to tell her friends what I did. Now, here they were, sitting like gatekeepers at a company I secretly bought out 6 months ago. Back then, no one knew what I was building. While they laughed at me for working out of cafes and living in a tiny apartment, I was silently closing deals. I had launched an AI tool that exploded overnight, too. 44 million users in the first quarter. By the time venture capitalists came knocking, I was already turning down offers. The tech world called me a quiet genius. But to my parents, I was just the failure daughter. Still, I needed them to stay blind, just for a little longer. So, when I saw the job posting for operations manager at Ridget Solutions, the company my parents worked at for 18 years, I applied under a fake name, not because I needed the job, but because I needed the stage. And here I was, sitting across from them, playing small for now. My mom finally glanced up from her mirror and muttered, "Let's not waste too much time, she's not qualified." The HR guy hesitated. "Well, she has some interesting background, looks like she's built tech before." My dad laughed. "Probably an app that makes sandwiches. Trust me, she won't last a week." I smiled just slightly, my heart was pounding, but I was calm. They had no idea the real meeting would happen at 3 p.m. in the boardroom with all department heads present, and a surprise guest they weren't expecting. At exactly 2:59 p.m., I walked into the boardroom, this time not as an applicant but as the new owner. The executives were already seated, murmuring in confusion about a surprise announcement. My parents sat near the middle, still laughing about the girl who thought she could run operations. My dad had his phone out, texting someone, probably making jokes. My mom leaned over to whisper something, smirking as if she ran the place. They didn't notice me walk in, not until the CEO of Ridget Tech stood and cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, trying to suppress a grin, "let me introduce you to the new majority owner of Ridget Solutions, Nova Williams." Dead silence. My dad's hand froze midair, phone still lit up in his grip. My mom blinked so fast it looked like she was buffering. The smirks were gone, replaced by shock, disbelief, a slow, spreading panic. "Wait, what?" my dad muttered, standing halfway. "Is this a joke?" I turned and finally looked straight at them. "No jokes today, Dad, just business." The CEO stepped back as I walked to the head of the table, placed my leather portfolio down, and calmly slid the signed acquisition papers forward. 6 months ago, I acquired 67% of this company's shares through a holding firm. Starting today, I'm taking active control. Everyone stared like they'd seen a ghost except for one senior director, a woman named Denise, who subtly grinned and whispered, "About time." My mom finally found her voice. You tricked us. You came here pretending." "I didn't pretend," I interrupted. "You just assumed I was beneath you." The room went completely still. I could feel the tension snap like a rubber band stretched too far for too long. All those years of being mocked, all those family dinners where I was made to feel less than, all the eye rolls and backhanded compliments, they had brought us to this exact moment. I leaned forward. "You told the HR team not to hire me. You called me soft, unqualified, worthless." My dad's face had turned pale. We were just trying to help you." I cut him off by laughing. "You destroyed my confidence when I tried to grow." Another pause. Then I looked at the whole room and said, "Starting tomorrow, Ridget's leadership structure will change. Some roles will be reassigned based on merit, not tenure or connections." I didn't have to say names, but the looks on their faces said it all. The next morning, the company cafeteria was a storm of whispers. People stared as I walked in, not with arrogance, but with quiet power. I wasn't the same girl they remembered from years ago, the one who brought coffee to her parents during Bring Your Kid to Work Day. Now, Even the directors looked nervous when I passed by. Word had spread like wildfire. The new boss was the daughter they'd all laughed about, and now she held the pen that decided everything. I called an all-hands meeting in the auditorium. Rows of employees filled the seats, many curious, others clearly shaken. My parents sat near the back, looking out of place in the company they once dominated. I stepped onto the stage, took a deep breath, and said what had been boiling inside me for years. For most of my life, I was told I wouldn't amount to much, that I wasn't tough enough, that I was wasting my time chasing tech fantasies. Even in this very building, there were people, including my own family, who treated me like I didn't belong. A hush fell across the room. But while they laughed, I built quietly, obsessively. Every rejection was fuel, every insult a spark. I paused, letting the weight of my words land. Then I pulled up a slide on the screen, a timeline showing the growth of my startup from a basement side project to a $48 million acquisition. The crowd gasped. I saw jaws drop. I continued, 6 months ago, I bought this company because I saw its potential, but I also saw the rot inside, the favoritism, the arrogance, the fear of change. That ends today. Eyes were locked on me. I called out new promotions, young, smart employees who'd been ignored for years. Then I dropped the final bomb. Effective immediately, all department heads will go through a 60-day performance audit. No exceptions. Titles and last names will no longer protect anyone here. My parents froze. My mom looked like she wanted to stand up and argue but couldn't find the strength. My dad's lips twitched, but he said nothing, not in front of everyone. They both realized the same thing, they were no longer in control. I was, and I wasn't playing small anymore. But I wasn't done yet, because what I was about to reveal next would turn their world upside down. 3 days later, I invited my parents to a private meeting on the top floor, the executive suite they used to joke I'd never see. They walked in stiffly, unsure if they were still being humored or if this nightmare was permanent. I sat behind the glass desk, the same one my father used to admire during his floor tours. "Have a seat," I said calmly. My mom tried to smile. "Nova, sweetie, let's not make this personal." "It's never been more personal," I replied, sliding a folder toward them. "This is your severance package." My dad's hands trembled as he opened it. You're letting us go?" "No," I said, locking eyes with him. "I'm setting you free. You always said I was too emotional for business, so let's keep it strictly business." My mom's voice cracked. "We gave our lives to this company. And you spent every second undermining me," I answered. "Not just here, my entire life." They looked shocked, but I could tell deep down they knew this had been coming, not just because of the takeover, but because they finally had to face a version of me they never imagined, strong, prepared, and unafraid to cut ties. "You didn't just doubt me," I continued. "You enjoyed watching me struggle. You told others I was wasting my time while I was working 18-hour days. You belittled my effort and then tried to block me when I finally showed up at your door." My dad leaned back. "This company will suffer without us." I shook my head. "This company suffered because of you." Silence. I stood up and walked toward the window, looking out at the skyline. For a moment, no one said a word. The same city where I used to feel invisible was now mine. When I turned back, I added, "You taught me something important. You taught me how to survive in a world that underestimates women, and for that, I'm grateful." They both looked exhausted, small, like the power they once held had melted away. But just before they left the room, I said one last thing. "Oh, and don't worry about your retirement accounts. I made sure to double them before I signed the buyout. Not for you," I added, "but because I refused to become as cruel as you were to me." The door closed behind them, and I finally exhaled. But just as I thought the storm had passed, an unexpected letter arrived from someone I never thought I'd hear from again. The envelope was plain, no return address, just my name, Nova Williams, typed in all caps. I almost tossed it aside until I saw the faint seal in the corner, my grandfather's law firm. He passed away 10 years ago, but before he died, he was the only one who ever believed in me, the only person who told me I had a fire inside me that others couldn't see. Hands trembling, I opened it. Inside was a letter dated nearly a decade earlier. He had written it the year I dropped out of college when everyone else was calling me a failure. "Nova, if you're reading this, it means you made it, and I'm not surprised. I knew you would. I saw your potential long before anyone else did. That's why I left this for you." Attached was a second document, a share transfer certificate. My grandfather had purchased a secret 15% stake in Ridget Tech Solutions before he died and left it entirely to me. But there was more. He had also created a trust funded with millions from his private investments, set to activate only when I became the majority shareholder of Ridget. I had just unknowingly triggered it. Tears welled in my eyes as I read the final line. I knew they'd try to break you, but you were built to rise higher. Now show them what a Williams woman is truly capable of. I sat back, overwhelmed. Everything I'd built on my own had just collided with a legacy I didn't even know I had. Within a week, I launched a complete rebrand of the company, new mission, new leadership, new culture. Employees who'd been stuck under toxic managers were finally getting promoted, innovation surged, stock prices doubled. And as for my parents, they moved to Florida out of shame, out of fear, or maybe just out of the way. People said I was too young to lead, too emotional, too unpredictable, but they were wrong about all of it. I wasn't just the boss now, I was the legacy they tried to bury. And I made sure the whole world would never forget the day they laughed at me, because now, I owned the building where it all happened. Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.